Good morning. I'm Joanne Wong, Director of Corporate Services at the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council. Thank you so much for taking the time today to participate in the How to Do Business with Sikorsky, a Lockheed Martin company. So today we have Martha Crawford, Supplier Diversity Manager and Small Business Liaison Officer for Sikorsky, who's going to provide an overview of the procurement and supplier diversity process. So first, I just want to say thank you so much to Sikorsky and Lockheed Martin for being a silver level annual sponsor of G&E MSDC. Our annual sponsors are critical in helping the council to provide our programming for our MBEs, and we wouldn't be able to do this work without them. And so just a quick little housekeeping update before we get started. So we are recording this session. The presentation will be available at the close of the event. And today we'll be using a raise hand function so that you can ask your questions directly to Martha at the end of her presentation. So for those who don't know, there is a little icon that says raise hand, and then we'll call on you, and then you'll be able to unmute yourself. And with that, I will turn it over to Martha.
Great. Thanks, Joanne. Welcome, everyone. And for those of you who don't know me, as Joanne said, I'm the Supplier Diversity Manager for the Sikorsky line of business within Lockheed Martin's Rotary and Mission Systems. I've been in this role for almost 8 years. And so some of you may have seen me at other GNE events or other small business related events throughout Connecticut and Greater New England. So I'm going to provide a really high level overview. I could certainly talk for an hour, but I think it'll be more meaningful for me to go through the steps quickly and answer your questions at the end. So with that, the next slide, please. So, and this is just an overview that was actually just updated in January of this year. Lockheed Martin is one of the world's largest defense contractors, employing over 114,000 people worldwide. We now operate in over 50 countries. And the bulk of our employee base, as you can see, is made up of scientists and engineers. And all of our product lines rely heavily on those subject matter experts. Next slide, please. Some of our major customers are the Departments of Defense, Homeland Security, Energy, etc. Excuse me. But I would have to say certainly the bulk of our work right now, certainly for Sikorsky, is with the Department of Defense, and that is approximately 75% of our work. But we also do work with more than 100 nations globally, and many of those contracts are overseen by our Department of Defense customers as well. So next slide, please. Actually, the slide we want to be on is this one. Yep. So Lockheed Martin is comprised of 4 business areas. Aeronautics, which is manufacturing aircraft like the F-35 and the C-130. F-35 has been in the news quite a bit lately. Missile and Fire Control, which primarily supports the Missile Defense Agency here in the US. And it's pretty self-explanatory what they're providing. Space is a smaller business area within Lockheed Martin. And finally, Rotary and Mission Systems, which is the line of business is the business area that Sikorsky falls under. The other large portion of the Rotary and Mission Systems business is in support of our maritime customers. Next slide, please. This is kind of an eye chart, but when you take a look at it, it gives you a great visual of the major US locations across all 4 lines of business. And it certainly includes the Sikorsky facilities in Shelton and Stratford, as well as other major RMS locations, and as I said, the other business areas as well. Next slide. And so those sites, just as a footnote, those sites are those that employ upwards of 250 people. So just to give you an idea, we certainly have more sites than that. Those smaller sites are not included on our map. Our supply chain at a glance, based on the latest figures available to us, we had, as you can see, more than 13,000 active suppliers. And this, the makeup of our diverse and small business suppliers is more than 7,700 small businesses. So I think that speaks to the commitment of Lockheed Martin to a diverse and inclusive supplier base. In government fiscal year 21, which ended in September of last year, $5.6 billion was awarded to small businesses, and that's across all 4 business areas. And our commitment to a diverse and inclusive supplier base is a competitive advantage for Lockheed Martin. Our supply chain employs over 4,000 supply chain professionals who interact with our supplier diversity team on a regular basis. Next slide, please. So this slide always kind of gets me. It actually has a little automation in it. And so your responsibility as a small and diverse business is really to show us how you differentiate yourselves and how you stand out in a crowd, so to speak. So just a little levity for this morning. It's not my slides, so next one, please. These are the top NAICS codes that Lockheed Martin is procuring from small businesses. And this is across all business areas. It's not necessarily representative of what the line of business Sikorsky is doing. I would have to say for the Sikorsky line of business, the key drivers would be not necessarily engineering services, but the NAICS codes that show directly below those. So machine shops, electronics, other aircraft parts, aircraft engines, those sorts of things, miscellaneous fabricated metal. That's not to say that we don't buy indirect goods and services, but these are just the top NAICS codes dollar volume wise for Lockheed. Next slide, please. So qualities that prime contractors seek in new suppliers. And this is information that you can certainly put to good use, whether you're talking to Lockheed Martin or any other large business or large prime contractor. I know some of you probably also interact with Raytheon Technologies, Pratt & Whitney, BAE. While we may be competitors, or as we like to say in the industry, competimates, we look for the same qualities in our new suppliers. And so certainly past performance is with a federal customer or another prime contractor is key. Any of our supply chain professionals that you interact with will certainly ask that. Our customer asks us for past performance on other federal prime contracts. So that's a good measure of your capabilities. uh, again, that kind of goes hand in hand with the experience with Lockheed Martin or another prime, experience in one of our industries, whether it's maritime or aerospace or high tech fields such as space, even missile and fire control. Um, Quality certifications can be uh, I won't say a delimiter, but they certainly can be a hard, fast requirement for a line of business such as Sikorsky, for suppliers to be able to provide aircraft parts for us, whether they're manufacturing or distributing those aircraft parts, requires very specific quality certifications. Security clearances can certainly be an advantage, not always necessarily a requirement. And cybersecurity readiness we hear about it daily. I'll speak a little bit more about it in a few slides, but that's critical to your success, whether you're working with Lockheed Martin or you're working with each other. We've all seen examples of cybersecurity breaches. They seem to be coming fast and furious these days, and certainly we don't expect that to lessen, unfortunately. Your socioeconomic status is not a qualifier, but it can be an advantage. All things being equal, that may be the thing that sets you apart. Location is included on this slide, and I would have to say I would put parentheses around location. We work with suppliers certainly around the globe, but the ones that we're concentrating on are primarily US suppliers. And while the bulk of the Sikorsky supply base is probably in the Northeast, that's certainly not necessarily going to exclude you from working with another business area that's outside of the Northeast. Technology unique to you that perhaps you've patented, or that you're on the cutting edge for, that's certainly the kind of thing that you should bring to our attention. Again, as I mentioned earlier, differentiating factors. What sets you apart from your competitors? And last but certainly not least is, are you a provider of services that we need? We're a big company. We work with a lot of suppliers, but there are some categories that we're just not procuring at the time, or might not be procuring at all. Next slide, please. So if you have the good fortune to be invited to participate in an RFQ, and again, this is not anything new. I'm sure you're all well seasoned and experienced marketeers, and so of course you'll be responsive and read and understand. And truly, if you choose not to compete, or we've sent you an RFQ that doesn't fit into your core competencies, submit a no bid and explain why. We have a lot of new buyers across all the lines of business, and so they may not be as seasoned and be as familiar with the goods and services you're providing. So they sometimes issue RFQs to suppliers that they shouldn't be. But you need to let them know that. And again, it's really important to understand the terms and conditions and what the quality and delivery requirements are. Terms and conditions can be kind of daunting, but it's really critical that you understand those up front. and have any questions or answered, or any discussions around those terms and conditions, have those conversations up front as well. Again, if you need clarification or an extension, ask the buyer for it. It's certainly not to ask questions, to seek help in an RFQ is certainly not considered a weakness in any stretch of the imagination. That's how we all learn, and our supply chain professionals invest a lot of time and money in onboarding new potential suppliers. And so it's really important for us to help you succeed. It's a big investment on our part. It's one that we're committed to. And so in order for us to have a successful small business program, we need our small business suppliers to be successful. And the last bullet kind of goes without saying, always return calls and emails promptly. I know in this day and age, sometimes it's easier to text or to email as opposed to picking up the phone. But however the buyer communicates to you, make sure you communicate back to them in the same way. Next slide, please. When you're responding to an RFQ, we ask that suppliers quote full costs. And so you may need to ask some clarifying questions in order to provide a full cost. Certainly we have high expectations and requirements for quality and delivery. We strive to have our suppliers either moving to or attaining 100% quality on 100% of the parts. And we do look at the delivery ratings as well. And while some of the delivery ratings may be our fault, I'll be quite honest with you. That's something that, the delivery ratings are certainly a key component of our supplier ratings. And as with anything, we ask our suppliers to meet their commitments. Next slide, please. So I mentioned cybersecurity earlier, and I would just, I would just like to add a few additional bullet points. Certainly, it's in your best interest to make the investment to protect your infrastructure from cybersecurity risks and threats. The NIST Special Publication 800-171 provides a lot of information around getting compliant, as well as resources to help small and mid-sized businesses. Nearly all US weapons systems have critical cybersecurity problems. That's what we hear from the auditors. Our business area is currently going through an in-depth audit with the Defense Contracts Management Agency as we speak, and cybersecurity is a key component of that audit. Now, clearly, companies like Lockheed Martin have deep pockets and can invest heavily and have invested heavily in cybersecurity protection. And the bad guys out there know it. So they're apt to go after what they perceive to be the weak link in the supply chain. So whether that's, supplier communications with our downstream suppliers, tier 1, tier 2, that's what they're looking for. Next slide. And I'm not a cybersecurity expert by any stretch of the imagination. But we do have a website set up for our suppliers. It should be accessible to you as well. It's not, I don't believe it's behind our firewall, and it's not exclusive to suppliers that have access to our supplier portal. But there's a cybersecurity questionnaire that goes hand in hand with the NIST 800 questionnaire. And there's some FAQs and some resources for you to take a look at, and to ensure that your company's on the right path. While we won't recommend necessarily specific tasks or resources for you to use, that's your call. But we will provide access to the general information. Next slide, please. So this slide really sums up the steps to market to Lockheed Martin. So, whether you're talking to myself or one of my counterparts in another business area, and it kind of is a review of what I've discussed so far. Clearly, it's important to do your homework and identify a target. We do have a supplier marketing portal, which some of you may have already completed a profile in. And make sure that that profile is up to date. Whether that's you have somebody checking it every 6 months or once a year, just so that we know that it contains the most current information about you. And the importance there is our supplier marketing portal is used by supply chain when they are completing their market research requirements. So in a competitive bid situation, our supply chain professionals are required to go out and include small and diverse businesses across all categories. So they use this portal as it's a search tool for them. So it's important that the information out there is obviously current and accurate and complete, and it includes your quality certifications, your socioeconomic status, things like that. Meet influencers. That's changed a little bit, I would have to say, over the past 2+ years. We previously, and I think we'll be getting back to that eventually, but we have a link on our website, the website that's included at the top of the slide, for there's a link for the events at which we'll be participating. So whether it's the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council, Business Expo, or events such as the U.S. Navy Gold Coast. Now, in light of COVID, all of our events have been virtual, such as this event. We still have a travel moratorium in place, but we are hoping to get back out on the road later this year. So I expect that will be updated at some point. If you are, the step number 4 really can pertain to you if you are a provider of leading edge technology. SBIR and STTR are government DoD programs that relate around small business, innovative research, and technology transfer. And so those types of arrangements are really geared towards, they're almost like joint ventures with small businesses. Lockheed Martin provides the investment, if you will, and is able to take advantage of the innovative research or technology transfer that that small business is able to provide. We generally have a list of topics that our technologists are interested in, and you can subscribe to that distribution list in order to get that list of topics that comes out, I believe, once a year. And last but not least, if you have unique opportunities that you feel fit into our umbrella of goods and services that we're providing to our customers, bring those to us. The advantages that you have as a small business are certainly cannot be denied. In many cases, you're able to be much more nimble than a large organization can be, of course, and you may have the advanced technology, whether it's artificial intelligence or it's something that's emerging as a new technology. Certainly, we have a large staff of scientists and engineers, but some of the concepts that are brought forward to us in the SBIR and STTR arena are really, not to date myself, but they're kind of like the Star Wars of today. So bring those opportunities to us as you can identify them. Next slide, please. Also included on as part of our supplier facing website, we list the types of training we provide to our suppliers. There's a list of what we buy, what we currently have on corporate agreement. The corporate agreements list is current, and in many cases, it's hard to tell on here, but if you go to our website, you can download it and see. It will show you when those agreements are due to expire, and what your potential action could be. We also have a list of what we buy that's updated. That list is updated annually. And I think, oh, I've got a couple more slides. Sorry, next one, please. We also have we've included this. This is a new addition to our deck. Another helpful resource is this ethics mini course. And it just provides a guideline for companies that are looking to set up an effective ethics program and or strengthen the ethics program that they may have. And so I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but these links are active and working, so you can take a look at them at your leisure and get the information that's pertinent to you. The next slide goes into a little bit more detail about the SBIR program that I mentioned earlier. This link will also bring you right to the site where you can self-register your company to be added to the distribution list. I don't know that there's a current chart located on the site, but if you have a technology that does not fit into the current list of what we're soliciting for, you can also provide that information to the link on the site. And there is a lot of great information there. And this is an area that Lockheed Martin's really great at managing and organizing. The subject matter experts are all of our chief technologists, and they work really closely with our small business partners on innovation. Next slide, please. Some of you may be familiar with the mentor protege programs that are offered by the Department of Defense and the Small Business Administration. We do have a link here that talks a little bit about the mentor protege program that Lockheed Martin participates in. We participate in the Department of Defense version of mentor protege. And if you're interested in becoming a potential protege, you can email this, you can send an email to this supplier communications email address. We like to, let me back up a step. The mentor protege program requires us to submit a proposal to the customer, or the government, US government. And so this really becomes a contract between the small business and Lockheed Martin. And so we do give preference to current suppliers and companies that have been in business at least 5 years. To ensure, so that we know that there's some financial stability there. If you go to the DoD Mentor Protege Program link included in this presentation, you will find out specifically what the government has DoD has very specific parameters that you need to fit into in order to be considered. But feel free to reach out to us with any questions as well. We currently, I can speak for Sikorsky, we finished a 1-year mentor protege agreement with one of our longstanding small disadvantaged business suppliers last fiscal year. We're currently looking at potential agreements for fiscal year 23, which starts in September. And so it is a program that Lockheed Martin supports strongly, and it's certainly been very advantageous to the participants as well as to us. Next slide, please. And I'll be honest with you, I'm still learning about the Lockheed Martin joint ventures, but the corporation has made strategic investments in companies that, as I said, kind of, along the same lines of SBIR, companies that are developing cutting edge technologies in core businesses that can support our core businesses. And so there's some examples of what those joint ventures look like when you go to this website here. And I apologize that I'm not as versed on this particular aspect of the presentation as I'd like to be. So if anyone has any specific questions, I may not be able to answer them today, but I'll certainly get you the answers that you're looking for. And I believe that's the end of my formal deck.
Okay, thank you so much, Martha. That was super helpful. So as of right now, I'd like to invite all attendees, if you have a question, now's the time to click that raise hand button. And so we will call on your name when we see that you have your hand raised for your question. And I know it's a lot easier to ask a question directly versus typing it in and then leaving out things and having to go back. So, okay, we have, let's see. We'll go with Jason Corbin first. So if you can unmute Jason. Jason, can you unmute to ask your question?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Let's see here. If I can. I'm sorry. Get a little feedback here on the microphone. Hi, Martha. My question, what steps should an agency take to onboard with Lockheed?
So I would say the first step would be to register your organization within our supplier marketing portal. That is the first resource we look at. So whether it's myself or one of my counterparts in supplier diversity, it's a searchable. It feeds into a searchable database. You can upload capability statements. You can put as much information in that profile as you can about your organization. And consequently, if someone from supply chain comes to us and they're looking for, a very specific NAICS code or very specific, goods or service provider, if they come to us, we're going to search in the database. If they're going to do a search on their own to conduct their own market research, they will look on the in that supplier marketing portal as well. Typically, also, in addition to completing that profile, companies will also reach out to myself, for example. I'm probably a little bit of an anomaly in that I freely share my contact information, so I can only speak for myself. But as a participating corporate member of GNE, feel free to reach out to me personally. If I'm not the right point of contact, I will certainly try to get you to that right point of contact.
Very helpful, and I will reach out in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question. Okay,
Thank you.
Eugene, I'm gonna click on your name now. So if you can, oh, great.
Do I sound okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Thank you for coming today. Mike, I noticed something you mentioned about the maritime access. So my company provides professional services. Our core competency is project management. We do a lot of work in the facilities management space, basically doing move management. I am also a master boat captain, so I have a maritime license, TWIC license. I'm wondering if that type of access helps with working on certain projects.
I don't know, but I can certainly find out. What we typically do in the maritime marketplace, if you will, for lack of a better term. I know helicopters really well. I don't know that market as well, but Lockheed Martin provides components that support large naval aircraft primarily. So whether it's radar or sonar, those things. I don't know that they're providing services, but I can certainly find out.
Or is there anything in move management that Lockheed is working with, I guess, external vendors, or is everything internal?
We do work with a lot of third-party service providers. For example, at Sikorsky in Stratford, which is the site that I'm supporting. We have third-party service providers for facilities management. So there's a service provider that comes in, and so they manage our cleaning crew, and they, that's one facet of what they do. They could manage the landscaping, the snow removal, so that we're not necessarily, and I think it's pretty site specific. from what I've heard from our facilities managers, our internal managers, so rather than having obviously Sikorsky subcontract out to all of those individuals like cleaning service and a landscaper and snow removal, obviously that managed service provider is providing that one point of contact and then managing all of those individual contracts, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yep, sure does. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the question.
Okay, so we have Barry Schnechter.
Good
Sorry if I
morning.
butchered your name.
That's okay. Good morning. So I'm with SHI International. We have a quick question. We do a lot of work with you through RMS, supporting both internal and direct and indirect procurement, majority COTS items. So diversity, it means a lot to us as well. We did migrate to a large business, but with the largest minority woman-owned company in the U.S. Should we speak with you, Martha, as well? Because we're not, again, we're no longer a small business, but we are a minority-owned large business.
Yes, and in reviewing our spend reporting, we did notice that looking at the RMS numbers last month, Barry,
Right.
we did notice that, and then one of my team members had indicated that we're currently not tracking diverse categories other than for
Right.
small business. But so what I would say is, so two things. Our government customer has really challenged us this year with some really aggressive goals in a couple categories. And so we're focusing most of our efforts on those small and diverse businesses. However, having said that, and I had this conversation with a supplier last week who also is no longer a small business.
Right.
We still need our suppliers, our existing suppliers, to meet their commitments to us. It's just as critical that you continue to do so going forward, as you have in the past, because that's how we're all successful in meeting our customer commitments.
Yep, because we're definitely committed to strengthening diverse owned businesses as well from this end as well when we place orders with our OEMs.
Great, that's great to hear. And just as kind of a segue from Barry's question, currently Lockheed Martin does not count tier 2 spend as a U.S. government prime contractor. We have not been given the green light to do so by the agencies that oversee our contracts. And so but what I would say is it's really important for you, whether, if you're with a company like SHI, that tier 2 spend is just as important. And while you may not be directly supporting Lockheed Martin or Sikorsky, it's just as important to the mission of our customers that you're meeting those critical commitments. So
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I know in the past I've worked with Teresa Torres and Joanne Cellini. I'm sure you know them well.
I know Teresa very well, and Joanne's retired now.
She is. Yep.
So,
I know them from my past life at Lockheed. So
okay, well, I'll tell Teresa you said hello.
Please do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and
Barry.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, and so Drew Taylor, you can take yourself off mute.
Hey, good morning, Martha. I'm Drew from Rank Technologies. I just want to, want you to share some light on the staffing needs of Lockheed Martin. Do you guys use direct vendors, or all the requirements go through the managed service providers, or any other means? So what are the categories you're looking for right now? And we are New Jersey-based MBE, so want to check if there is any current opportunities to work with Lockheed on this.
Okay.
We have a please go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thanks for the question, Drew. We do work with a managed service provider. Currently, Lockheed Martin is working with Search Pros, which is actually also a small business. I don't remember if they're MBE or woman-owned, but regardless, they are our managed service provider. Sikorsky, the Sikorsky line of business is planning on migrating to that service provider. I don't have a timeline on that. The existing, or I'll say the incumbent service provider for Sikorsky has been Volt. So if you have relationships with either of those service providers, I would encourage you to continue to have those conversations with them. The managed service provider tool is such that a hiring manager will complete a requisition for the position they're looking to fill, and the candidates that come back will be all those candidates that fit those requirements. And so the theory is it is a vendor agnostic tool. And so we get the result is we get the best candidate for the job, regardless of whether they're, with ABC staffing agency or XYZ staffing agency. From time to time, and I can only speak for the Sikorsky business again, we do have requirements for very specific subject matter experts in engineering and technology fields. And so it's probably, those things are as they come up, kind of. It's not a great way to describe them, but they're much more on an as needed basis. I can tell you that we really are not outsourcing much, if any, IT services or staffing requirements at this time.
Cool. Thank you very much, Martha, for that. Shedding light on the MSP side and the roles, particularly. Thank you, and have a great day ahead. Thank you,
Thanks.
Joanne.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, we will start the wrap up and you'll get 10 minutes back of your day. So, okay, well, thank you again so much, Martha, for taking the time today to participate in our How to Do Business with webinar. Just as a reminder, we did record the session and it will be available on our YouTube page, and the presentation materials will be sent following the event. Please do let me know if you have any questions, and thank you.
Thanks, Joanne.
Have a great day.
Great driving. Have a great day, everyone.